Welcome to another edition of the In the Paint Show, episode 157, presented by Ballislife. Here with my co-host Chelsea Hopkins. Our guy Ronnie is feeling a little under weather, so we're gonna go without him. We talked to him a little bit. He gave me some little insight on what he saw in Texas, and obviously the season is over in California, the high school season. Chelsea, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ronnie. I am hurting because we had a very tough game last night. So I'm just, enjoying my off day, trying to recover. We are smack dab in the middle of the playoffs, so every game is pretty intense. But we won, and we're on our way to getting hopefully a high seed in the Final Four. So I can't complain. How are you?
I'm doing good. Really busy time. Obviously, we got the Ballislife All-American game coming up May 6th in Southern California. That should be good. We got just busy time with high school season ending. Obviously, when we jump on the pod, again, this one might be short and sweet. Again, we don't have our guy Ani on, but we're always talking about something coming up. And I have to admit, when I first heard this, I was like, what is going on? And I'm speaking of the incident with Shawn Kemp. And it said like he was involved in a drive-by shooting. I'm like, Shawn Kemp is involved in a drive-by shooting, and I'm trying to process it. And I'm thinking like, and I was hanging out with my buddy who actually a childhood friend who loved Shawn Kemp, and I was like, Shawn Kemp. So it comes out that that's not really like exactly what happened, the headlines, right? And I could just picture Shawn Kemp in a parking lot, and he's telling the policeman like, "Hey, those are the guys over there that were shooting at me." Like I just can't picture that. So, again, it turned out an incident where it looked like, against reports said that you know his his items were stolen, including an iPhone, and he kind of tracked them down. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I was stealing Shawn Kemp's iPhone. Like I wouldn't do that. I don't know. We're always talking about guns. We've talked about that a lot. It's actually something we're going to talk about again. But and we talked about that with John Moran and his Instagram live. We've talked about obviously that with Brandon Miller, the situation. Obviously, he didn't, wasn't involved in anything illegal, but he was involved in the incident. Is that just kind of something, Chelsea, that we're gonna continue to hear, and it's just in our society, pervasive in our society?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. We obviously have a gun problem in America. But
Yeah,
I think with at least some of these instances, especially with the Shawn Kemp incident, like context
yeah,
matters.
sure.
When the reports first broke, it was Shawn Kemp drive-by shooting. So everybody's like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it totally like blew your mind. And then reports
yeah,
come out later that he had some property stolen.
yeah,
He used the, Find Your iPhone app, found the perp that had his phone or his belongings.
yeah,
And then apparently when he went to retrieve his belongings, he
yeah,
was shot at. So he
yeah,
returned, shots in the
yeah,
crossfire. So I'm not really saying that that makes it okay, but it's a little different than Shawn Kemp drive-by shooting, So
yeah,
either way, it's become too prevalent, just gun incidents. And
yeah,
obviously they just happen every day. But when you have these figures, Shawn Kemp, John Moran't, high profile NCAA athletes that are, involved in these things, then they're going to draw attention. And it's just not a good look, kind of any way you break it down. Especially, I think about John Moran, and I want to get your kind of perspective on this. Like, young, comes off a little bit immature, to
sure.
me at times. You see his interactions with people on social media kind of going back and forth, and just, little incidents he's had in the past. And, I just kind of wonder why. Like, you are a high profile figure, you're making a ton of money. And with me, I don't even think his is so much about the guns, but more so like this persona that he wants to, kind of
Yeah,
give off. So what do you think about Ja and what he's got going on these days?
I think you know this is a good time to, like you said, reset and take a step back, like detox. And when we say detox, it could be detox just from his environment, maybe some of his hanger-on friends. Again, maturing. We talk about maturing. I don't know if it's a detox. I've heard reports that he maybe need to watch his alcohol. I've heard that. Again, I'm not speaking from 100% fact, but I can see that. And I can see why he's in a rehab facility. He may just need to be like restart, like as much as he uses his phone, all of that. Like get rid of some contacts you have in your phone. It's kind of like when Tiger Woods got in his incident where he ran into a tree and his ex-wife and they got into a, like a domestic dispute, and he busted his car in a tree. Like he needed a reset, like a totally reset, and I think Ja, and to his, for a good for thing is that he's young and that he has time to like totally revamp all that. You know how when you compare to like somebody who's toward the end of their pro career where it's already, he's went through all that and it just keeps going back and forth. I think he's young enough where he can like revamp himself and kind of like reinvent his whole demeanor. No, not to say his demeanor, his whole persona, like you said, in public, his public persona. He has time to rehabilitate his image. It's not broken, anything like that. So I think that's a good thing. I hope he does well. But yeah, as far as like, I just think that's society where we're at. We're addicted to the mediums we use, whether it's our phone. Uh, some people are addicted to like that style, that a style they have. Maybe some people, like they said, they go out too much. Some people are infatuated with guns. Some people are infatuated with whatever you have. We all have our vices. Some of it is just more dangerous than others. For me personally, I'm probably on my computer a little too much. It's not good for a good thing. It's not carrying a gun going crazy, but it's not a good thing. So we all have our vices. I don't know if you have a vice, Chelsea, that's like, yeah, I got to work on that. But for him, it's all in the public, and he puts it all out on the public. That's like, he needs to stop doing that. So,
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you. I think too much of anything is
yeah,
probably not
yeah,
good.
yeah,
I heard the reports about Ja checking into a rehab facility in Florida, but I didn't really know what it was for. Like they
yeah,
didn't say, alcoholism. I
yeah,
mean, is he in rehab because he flashed a gun? Like, we haven't
yeah,
really kind of got more
yeah,
details about it.
yeah,
But I'm happy that, not that this happened, but that he's gonna have a chance, like you said, to make things right.
yeah,
And not that he necessarily did anything that was terribly wrong, but
yeah,
here's a kid that the NBA is dying to make the face
yeah,
of the league one day.
yeah,
He's so charismatic, so likable. He's always dancing. He just got a Nike signature shoe, and I
yeah,
mean that's a big deal, Ronnie. Nike's not just passing out signature shoes. Like I
yeah,
can make an argument for a couple players that probably should have got it before Ja.
yeah,
Devin Booker is one that kind of comes to mind, who's been wearing the Nike Kobe PEs like
yeah.
forever, and he didn't even get the deal. So
Sure.
so there's obviously something special about this kid, and I don't want to see it burst into flames. Like
Yeah,
just so much talent, so much potential, on the court. And his ability to generate, generational wealth for his family off the court. He has
yeah,
all these deals going on. I saw that he did something with I think either Powerade or Gatorade, and they pulled the commercials recently because of the incident. So I just think that Ja is getting in his own way. And sometimes when
yeah,
you're young, you don't always see it. And he's touching more money than he ever has in his life, even though he's not, a kid that comes from necessarily poverty.
sure.
But you're just in this situation where you have to kind of learn how to adapt. So I'm happy that he's in this facility. I hope he gets the help that he needs. And I use my words carefully because I don't want to make it seem like he's a monster and something's wrong with him. But I don't want to see him throw all of this away. And
Sure.
when I look at him, I think about I was listening to an interview a while back. The rapper Waka Flocka, he was being interviewed, and he just made a comment about when God blesses you in whatever
Yeah,
industry you're in or wherever you came from, you have to let some stuff go. Like,
yeah,
Jay-Z sold drugs and did whatever he did, but once he got on, like, you got to let that go. We
sure.
see Young Thug, right now facing basically a lifetime prison sentence because he hit the ground running in the rap game, but then he's still doing, he got hit with the RICO case at the same time.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so, I use these examples because it's just, you don't want to see somebody like John Morant throw all this away just for making stupid decisions. And that's all
yeah.
he's done at this point. So I'm glad they're intervening and trying to, nip it in the bud before it goes too far. And hopefully he'll learn from this and then continue to be the star that he is.
Yeah, because if I see that video and he's in a strip club and somebody sold the video or get, and I would be thinking to myself, okay, dude, am I really? If you're kind of like wising up and detoxing from your friends and changing your phone number and getting away from people, like you said, for Chelsea, for an indefinite amount of time. I'm looking at that and being like, yeah, I don't really need to do that. Like somebody played him in that club or whatever, and he's throwing money around. He's going through it pretty fast. It should be an eye opening, regardless of your 23, 25, 30, 32. Like you should be like, okay, yeah, I probably don't need this in my life. It's somebody's making him look bad, and like you said, they're doing it at his expense. It's one thing when you like he's he's spending all the money. He's spending his money for other
Yeah,
people, and they're
yeah.
going in the club with him. Maybe he's going with a lot of people. That gets old. I've seen that before, and it's
Mhm.
you wake up. So that's what I think. I again, hopefully he does good. But yeah, speaking of that, I want to go back real quick to what you said a couple weeks ago, and you're like, hey, this they can fix this by, and meaning the load management issue in the NBA. And now it's coming to fruition, kind of what you said. It looks like they're negotiating like player awards and other milestones that are affects people's contract. It looks like that's going to be part of the new collective bargaining agreement. Chelsea, what do you think of that real quick? I know you think it's a good thing because you mentioned that as one of your solutions, but do you think that's are you glad that that's coming to fruition now? And what's your comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that they're doing it the right way. I think when you do it with the CBA and you have the Players Association involved, it's
Yeah,
a collective thing. It's not just the
yeah,
NBA saying, all right, he's going to play,
yeah,
this amount. So it's something that's going to be agreed upon. Because I
yeah,
think the players can make an argument that they have grievances about, some of the players that are chosen, for certain awards and, have sat out
yeah.
a sizable amount of games. So
Sure.
I don't think that it's just an argument of the management or even the fans. Like I think it's just the best for all parties. So I like to see
Yeah,
that it's going to be something that's going to be equally agreed upon, and I think it's just going to improve the overall product. They
yeah.
can make some tweaks to the All-Star game as well.
Oh yeah,
And
we will
that's
that.
gonna, this is just the start. But if you do this, people are gonna have more. They're gonna be more encouraged to play. Especially guys that want that, MVP on their resume, and I definitely think it's a good thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Again, because when the as long as the TV contracts continue to go up, the players, salary cap's going to go up. It's going to be so insane in terms of the money that the average American is going to think that the NBA players make, that they're going to need to continue to put a good product out on the floor. I do think it's a good product, like you said. People tend to watch in the playoffs, but yeah, what they happened at the All Star game this past year and like some of this issues with load management got to be fixed because it is ruining the product a little bit. That's all you hear about. You have the old guys, as you mentioned, the old heads, the Charles Barkleys of the world, kind of always ripping the product in essence. And then you have people like, boy, you don't understand these young guys and what they're going through. And then, like you said, if there's continuing to be incidents like John Morant's, then people are going to say, yeah, some of these guys, what are we doing here? They're playing 60 games. They're sitting out games and they're blowing all this money and getting themselves into trouble. So yeah, we want to get away from that. And I do agree with you. I think it's a good thing. Real quick, Chelsea, what do you think so far about, like, as we're speaking about this issue, is like the NBA's MVP, because we're in such an offensive league right now. We have all these
Yeah.
players putting up these incredible numbers, like, and everybody's debating it. Then it even got almost like racial, like you said, the makeup of the voting. Kendrick Perkins had something to say to JJ Redick, and people were going back and forth. Everybody seems to have their opinion about that. Like I said on many of the previous episodes, we didn't really get into the MVP talk like that. So I guess it's a good thing because it keeps the discourse going. But I want to get your opinion about that.
Yeah, I've read the headlines,
Yeah,
that have come about, in the last couple
yeah,
weeks, just regarding probably Jokic getting his third MVP in a row. And
yeah,
I've heard some of the arguments, and I never want to make anything like racial. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
think Joker is very deserving of the award based off of his
yeah,
stats and what he's been able to accomplish. I think there's some valid points in terms of like the criteria and
yeah.
how we are making the selection.
Sure,
Obviously there's a committee who's doing the pick, but sometimes it just didn't make sense for me. Not so much with, Joker being
sure,
the MVP now, but just some of the MVPs that we've seen in the past. We've
sure,
talked
sure.
about how I felt, Nash got Kobe's MVP.
Of course.
And when I broke stuff down, I'm like, no, there is no way that
Yeah,
Nash should have got this MVP and Kobe didn't.
sure.
So I just personally would like to see more information about the criteria and what goes into making the selection. because I
Yeah.
think that will give us a better understanding of why somebody got something, as opposed to just us speculating, oh, it's racial. Oh,
Yeah.
it's this. Oh, it's that. Like, there has to be some type of method. There has to be some type of winning element to it. There has to be some type of, are these numbers actually meaningful, or are they in garbage time, stat padding,
Yeah.
the concept that Kendra Perkin brought up. So I do not think that Joker is not deserving of the award. I can make a
Sure.
case for a couple other guys in the league. Joel Embiid has been exceptional. He was exceptional last year. But I just want to know the criteria. Like, if
Yeah.
there's a method to everything. We use analytics so much in basketball to break
Sure.
down every single thing. So I want to know the analytics on how they make this decision. And if they can make it make sense, I think people would be more accepting of whatever whoever the winner was.
No doubt. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm along that lines. It's a lot. MVP's always been up for debate. It's his perspective. Some guys have been robbed. Like I said one time when we're talking about 3 in a row, maybe with Joker, Larry Bird did that, and we all knew then coming up, like, okay, Magic's gonna start winning some MVPs. It's Magic's time, and sure enough, that happened. It probably cost Michael Jordan an MVP because he won
Mhm.
in '88, but he was probably deserving in '89. Like, he really was. He
Yeah.
just, but like, we didn't. It wasn't as big a deal. Like, everybody wasn't going crazy over it. It was just like kind of how was it all meant to be, and 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 I think it's a good discourse. Again, as long as people don't take it so personal, take personal shots at each other. A lot of great players, like you said, Embiid. Uh, Again, we're in an offensive era, so there's going to be a lot of great numbers. But I have no problem with Jokic winning the MVP if indeed he does the pick, because again, I don't know if that's going to be the actual like MVP as we look back of the season. Like, oh yeah, like if Giannis or somebody steps up in the playoffs. So you always go back to that, like, oh, but look at who stepped up in the playoffs. So we'll see that, and we'll be talking about the NBA playoffs very soon. We have the WNBA preview of upcoming Chelsea. We got some special guests lined up for that. Just real quick, as you feel about that, as your season's going, you guys are gearing up. I know you guys are on a winning streak. Um, what do you feel about that? Like, just the grind of a season, it coming to an end, regardless of what Ani says. You and others that they want, like, kind of like, as a professional, or do you just like, hey, I'm locked in, we're playing good, I'm healthy for the most part, I got to recover on my off days, or do you see a bigger picture, like, wow, this is going to change for me, and it's going to be an adjustment?
Well, honestly, I don't think it's really going to hit me until I get to that point.
Sure.
Right now, like, I always pray about just kind of staying present.
Okay.
Next week or even 2 months from now. Like, and I'm not in a rush for this to be over,
Yeah.
or any scenario. Like, I just want to enjoy the moment. I want to enjoy, my final days as a basketball player, and in just keeping that mindset. I've been hooping. Like, my
Yeah.
mom's been out here. She came to visit me, and my last 2 games were really good. We won those games. We're actually on a 7-game winning streak. We have 3 basically more games until the Final Four, and we're just 1 win away from securing the Final Four and a couple wins away from securing maybe a 2 seed or a 3 seed.
Wow.
So it's an exciting time, and for me, like, this has been the most competitive, I guess, like, kind of regular season that I've been in. So it's exciting because I'm usually at the top, where this little round robin of games that we're playing right now maybe aren't really relevant to who's going to the Final Four.
I
But
see.
now the standings are so close, and you're literally drop one game and you go from fourth place to sixth place, and then you're out of the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah.
So it's been exciting because all the games are super meaningful. I think for me, like, I get up for the more meaningful games, like, just
Sure.
mentally and physically, and I just take on that challenge. So it's been good. I've been happy. I can't really, besides my body aching and hurting
Sure.
today, like, I really can't, complain. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. We have just, 4 to 5 weeks left of season in its entirety, whether we go the whole way or not, and see what happens from there. So
Yeah, that makes sense. They're locked in, and it's helping you, and you're not looking too forward, and that's a good thing. And a good thing for your team and for you, obviously, for how you guys play. So that's awesome. Hopefully, we're gonna have a little bit of insight more. We'll get to talk to your teammates before you get out
yeah,
of Israel. That should be cool. So those should be upcoming. Again, we're on episode 157. I wanted to give a shout out to the other ones that are doing podcasts on the Balls Life Network. New Noble and Rouge, the Retro Room. It's in the game, 4 seasons, and Street Ball with Dominic and Isaac. Make sure you guys check those out on the Ball is Life podcast network. Just moving forward on the high school scene, I was in uh, California State playoffs, and it came to fruition when we talked about, like, with the, are you the number one seed in
Mhm.
a lower division, or the 16th seed in a higher division? There's 6 divisions. The open division was won by Harvard Westlake of North Hollywood, the Southern representative in the open. They bounced back from losing in the regional, and I'm sorry, bounced back from losing in their sectional, and won the regional and won the state tournament against the representative from the north. And it's very interesting that they're from the north. It's Santa Maria, St. Joseph, Santa Maria. I don't know if you've been to that part of the state in California, Chelsea, but Santa Maria is like in northern Santa Barbara County, which most people wouldn't even consider north. They just
Yeah.
happen to get put in the north. It's I went to UC Santa Barbara, but Santa Maria is probably like another 75 miles north. Beautiful wine country, but like most people wouldn't consider that north. Like literally, it's 9 hours from the Oregon border. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
3 hours from the Bay Area. So it's the way the state is broken up, like I said. And I think I was talking to the commissioners, a few of the section commissioners, and the people that are influential in the media and the process. They kind of realized that the process needs to change a little bit. You
Mhm.
know, the crowd wasn't very great at Golden One Center where the Kings were playing, and it's funny because the Kings came off a big win, and they were playing Giannis and the Bucks on Monday night, so everybody was talking about like how excited they were. But like then you have 2 or 3 thousand people for the high school event in the gym. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, and they kind of realize they need some adjustments. The Harvard Westlake had a great season. They only lost 2 games. They actually lost to Liberty and D. Don Thomas, who's been a guest on our pod, in a
Mhm.
tournament game, and they lost to St. John Bosco and came back to beat St. John Bosco in the regional. So they end up, with a terrific record. Right now, they moved up in the Fab 50, so they're sitting at number 12. Again, a lot of team seasons are over. And in Division One, Notre Dame won. Notre Dame's from their same league, the Mission League. So
Yeah.
the Mission League has Harvard Westlake, Notre Dame, and Sierra Canyon. And on last Tuesday in the regional, Notre Dame beat Sierra Canyon for the 4th time.
Mhm.
Again, we were kind of
Mhm.
talking about, can they beat them, 400. It's hard to beat a good team 4 times. And then they went into the state final. Harvard Westlake beat Granada, which is a good team, and they beat them pretty fair and square, 67-58. Our guy Caleb Foster, who a lot of people think he looked like an All-American. Everybody's like, this guy's playing like an All-American. So
Yeah.
Caleb Foster had 33 points, 2 of 3 threes, 12 of 17, got in the lane, dominated the game. And Dusty Stromer, his teammate who's going to Gonzaga, was kind of feeling ill and his back was hurt, so he didn't really even have to make much of an impact, and they still rolled. Mercy Miller, Masterpiece son, had 17 points in that game. And it goes back to what we're saying about if Notre Dame would have been in the open division, uh, then they wouldn't have won a state title probably, or they would have had to beat Harvard
Yeah.
Westlake. But since they were placed in D1, they were the strongest team, and they won and they came through. So
Easily.
yeah, and if again they beat Granada pretty handily, and they even beat Sierra Canyon pretty handily. So
Mhm.
Sierra Canyon was one of the top seeds in D1. So if Notre Dame would have been in the open, then
Would
maybe
have been.
Sierra Canyon would have been there, and there would have been a lot of people there.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that kind of got thrown that off. So that's why that system needs to be changed. We've talked about maybe it going to a Final Four type setting where it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
Yeah.
and then seed them where it's not necessarily north south, because the South has won of the 9 open divisions so far since 2013. Again, 2 of them were never played because of COVID. The South has won 8 of them, so it takes off a little bit of the luster. There's never really hardly a team from Sacramento, not that many teams. So then you have it in Sacramento, where the Bay Area has a much bigger like basketball acumen. People just in the Bay love basketball. Now I'm not really
Yeah.
sure Sacramento's like that. So that it was still a good event. There was a lot of good play. Trent Perry had a really great game for Harvard Westlake. Just as all around is improving. 16 points, 8 rebounds, 10 assists. Just as all generalship, running the team. That team really is um, where their sum is greater than their individual parts.
Yeah.
Robert
And
Hinckley,
Trent Perry is Vegas Elite kid. I watched him
right,
in the summer. Yeah. Okay.
the guard from Vegas Elite, and
Mhm.
he had a really good season. Honestly, he was the league MVP. And that says a lot because Caleb Foster's in that league. The Sierra Canyon guys are in that league, and he has a senior teammate, Brady Dunlap, whose dad is a coach, Jeff Dunlap, a Division I coach, and
Mhm.
he's going D1, high D1, and he was the MVP of that league. And that brings up something that's funny because everybody talks about Bronny's accolades and what he's doing and how good is he going to be, and like he's second team all league.
Yeah.
Again, that's a really strong league, but he's still second team all league, And so just I'm not gonna say anything more than he's second team
Yeah.
all league, but he's playing the McDonald's game and playing in Nike Hoop Summit and let people kind of take it from what they think. But shout out to Harvard Westlake and those guys. Shout out to Notre Dame, the other state champions in Division II. San Joaquin Memorial won their first state title. Shout out to that program. They're from the Fresno area. Again, they've produced a lot of great players. That's their first state title. Division III is another guest we've had on the pod, Orlando Watkins from Oakland High School.
Mhm.
Shout out to him. They won in D3. Again, people, Dame Lillard is always talking about his high school team on Twitter, and
Yeah.
he gave him a big shout out. So they won in D3. In Division IV, Valencia won. That wasn't a surprise because when everybody saw that they were in D4, they beat Half Moon Bay. And that's a great story, Half Moon Bay. There was a mass shooting in Half Moon Bay in January, I believe. And
Wow.
everybody rallied around that team, and they were glad they got a chance to make a state final. So shout out to Half Moon Bay. Valencia rolled. Again, if Valencia's in D3, they might even be
Yeah.
good in that division. So, and then in Division V, Linwood with freshman Jason Crow Jr. won. He had another big game. He finished with 1,295 points on the season, which is third all time in state history. 36 points a game, and he had 36 points in the state title game. That was on last Friday morning. People got a chance to see him. They were very impressed. They have 4 underclass starters. I think 3 are freshmen, so they'll be heard from in the future. But yeah, that's just a quick rundown of the state tournament. And like I said, I mean, we're moving on from that. The season still has about a month. We still have Indiana going. We still have Michigan going. A few other states in the Midwest are continuing to play. But yeah, you can check out the new rankings on ballslife.com. Like I said, Harvard Westlake is up quite a few spots for avenging their losses. So they're up to 12. And Notre Dame jumped back in at 48. They're 2 spots behind Durango. Got to give a shout out to Durango, who won the state championship in
Vegas.
Nevada. Yeah, they beat Liberty 3 out of 4 times. Liberty lost to number 47, Corner Canyon of Utah. They only had 2 losses. Corner Canyon is 24-2. Their season continued to play. They're going to probably play in the state championships invitational, April 6th to 8th. But Durango beat Liberty 3 or 4 times. Corner Canyon lost to Liberty. And Notre Dame, the team we just talked about, lost to American Fork, who lost to Corner Canyon in the state tournament in Utah. So that just all plays right in a row.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the updated, Fab 50 rankings look like at the, conclusion of some of these tournaments. I know Ani was actually present in a tournament. If he was here with us today, he's under the weather, so he wasn't able to talk about it. But I kind of want to ask you. I know you weren't there, but maybe you have some thoughts on the UIL tournament and kind
Definitely.
of what went.
Yeah, UIL, obviously University Interscholastic League in Texas at the Alamo Dome. And Ani said, again, we talked about different state tournaments. Like, it was packed. It was ruckus. It was loud. It was a great event, and usually is at the Alamo Dome. The teams want to get a state to have a Final Four. And Lake Highlands won their first state title since 1968, if you can imagine
Oh, wow.
that. Yeah, Lake Highlands with our guy Trey Johnson, who was on our preseason Fab 50 show talking about, hey, we need to improve our defense. We need to be locked in. And really, they were locked in the whole season. They won the state championship in the big division, 6A. They beat Beaumont United.
Was that a surprise to you? That Lake
No, they were
Highlands?
higher. Lake Highlands came in at number 8 in the Fab 50, and Beaumont came in number 13. I think they were slight favorites. So the
Okay.
results win as Ani predicted.
Okay.
So in 5A, Kimball won the state championship. Kimball is number 36 in the Fab 50. And actually right in front of them is 4A champ Oak Cliff Faith Family And I believe Ronnie picked all those right. And Oak Cliff family was in Tarkanian. So I got a chance to see them, and they've been ranked 2 straight years. So with those 3 games, 4A, 5A, and 6A, we got nationally ranked teams in each game. So that's different than California, where they knocked them off and they're all in the open division. They're all getting bumped off. So,
Yeah.
Trey Johnson, who's playing like the best junior in the country, if he's not the best junior in the country, again, he might be the best prospect and maybe the best player. Again, but he had a big night for Lake Highlands at 29 points. Beaumont United, Chelsea didn't score a field goal in the last 4 minutes of the game, 4:54. So it was kind of like it's hard to win a title that way. Sasson Alaton, who's going to Yale, it set a record with 7 block shots in that game. And Ani said he did really patrol the paint down the stretch. Again, Beaumont United went a little cold. So, Beaumont United stays number 13 in the Fab 50 this week. They only lost their second game of the season to Booker T. Washington of Houston and to the final game, Lake Highlands. So they're in front of number 14 Sidwell Friends. That's a team they beat. Speaking of a team Beaumont United beat, we just mentioned one in Corner Canyon from Utah. So Corner Canyon only lost to Liberty in Vegas and to Beaumont United. So Beaumont United has a really strong overall resume. And we talk about Durango. Durango lost to Faith Family at Tarkanian. Faith Family had a really good season. Again, they're the 4A champs. Faith Family only lost to Bishop Gorman at Tark, and they lost to Link Academy, and they lost to Mater Dei at the buzzer. So, shout out to Coach Brandon Thomas. He loves to follow this rankings and things like that. But there wasn't a big surprise in terms of results, Chelsea. Like the favorites won. It's reflected in our rankings. And I would say that I had Oak Cliff Faith Family in front of Dallas Carter. And a lot of local rankings had Dallas Carter higher. But Oak Cliff, I just thought nationally they had a good resume.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes when locally people don't know how good the other teams are. And obviously that's what I've been following for many years. So Kimball lost to Dallas Carter in overtime. So they're the 5A champs. And they lost to Wheeler of Georgia. Wheeler won the state championship. Our guy Horace was right on the money with Wheeler. Wheeler won the state title. And that was in Georgia. That's the largest division, Class 7A. The second best team in Georgia is probably Cal. Cal breaks into the Fab 50 this week. Cal is at number 50. Cal has only lost 2 games. One of them was to Rest Ranch, the team that won the Tark, and they lost to Grayson, a team in Georgia. So Tark was really good this year. When you look back at it, you didn't think it at the time, but like a lot of teams emerged as state champs. West Ranch. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit, but Rest Ranch, they gave Cal their loss. They won that tournament, but they didn't end up winning anything in California. So that they beat Notre Dame twice during the regular season. So all that kind of went as planned. Obviously, Isaiah Collier's in running from National Player of the Year. Speaking of National Player of the Year, it was very interesting when we talk about the California boys. Chelsea, in the attendance and what we can do to make it better. We want the event to be better. I've been going to it for many, many years. It has its good years, and it's really centered around times usually a great player. And so, like we said, with Ivan Rabb, that was the North's great player of recent note, and they did win the Open. But usually people want to see a great player and sometimes that's coming from the South. So that also hurt the attendance and the buzz, because people want to see maybe a lot of great high flying dunks and a great player on the girls' side, because Juju Watkins didn't make it. They got knocked off by Etowanda. Again, I was at a game at the Honda Center in Southern California where Etowanda lost to Sierra Canyon. So the rest of the country's like, wait a minute, I thought Etowanda already lost to Sierra Canyon, but they came back and beat them in the regional, and then they won at the buzzer against Mitty. Young lady hit the shot at the buzzer, really on an offensive rebound putback. So that was a big moment for her. But again, without Juju Watkins there, that was another draw, that maybe a few more people would want to see. So again, if it was a Final Four, like I said, and you reseeded it, she would have been there.
Absolutely.
So that's just something that hopefully we keep improving at the statewide level. And Juju Watkins again won the Gatorade National Player of the Year. I mentioned that because I wanted to talk about her being a Player of the Year. And our girl Candace Parker kind of surprised her at a photo shoot or a team shoot the other day. So that was cool. And Gatorade does a good job of promoting that.
And she was by far the
yeah.
like that girl's so far ahead. She's so good, and she is gonna slide right into college, not miss a beat, and you'll see her in the WNBA a couple years after that. So
yeah. Speaking of on the girls' side, let's talk about the girls' tournament. I guess the big question I have for you is: can anybody challenge the Gamecocks of South Carolina?
The answer is no. So they did the tournament a little bit different this year. Instead of 4 regions, there is 2, but they split the 2 regions up into halves, basically. So we have the Greenville 1 region, and that features your South Carolina Gamecocks as the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. They're in the Greenville 1 region. They're positioned to repeat, in my opinion. They have the easiest path to the championship. You know, they could run across some teams that they've already beat that would give them a good challenge in maybe number 2 Maryland, which they played earlier in the preseason, number 4 UCLA. But I really just, they're too big, too long, too athletic, too well coached, too been there before, done that before, lost again. Like the experience and stuff is just, you know, sometimes you get to these moments and, you know, just it's the team that's just more equipped. So besides them being more talented, they've been kind of in every scenario. So I definitely have them as the favorites to repeat. And I think that they have the strongest chance. When I look at the other side of the Greenville, well, it's the second bracket. It's called Greenville 2. That features number 1 Indiana. Number 1 Indiana is a really good team. They have some, I guess, strengths that can you challenge maybe South Carolina if they meet them in the Final Four. They're a great shooting team. They have size in the paint. They have an athletic wing who can, you know, keep up with some of those girls on the perimeter. But ultimately, I still see South Carolina getting by them. In that region as well, they have number 2 Utah and number 3 LSU. You know, LSU's been in the headlines a lot. But they did end up losing to Tennessee in their conference tournament after being up like 19 points. So people kind of just looked at them and said, hey, you know, you guys, you know, had LSU behind South Carolina, but, you know, they haven't played the schedule. You know, they don't know what it's like to, you know, to face a lot of adversity. And here they go with a 19-point lead and they lose to Tennessee anyway. So, you know, they're in that region. I think it's going to be challenging. I really like the guard play in that region, especially the Morris guard from LSU, who's very good. But I think that was a little bit of a toss-up. I can see Indiana getting out there because I think they're the most complete and deservingly so of a 1 seed, even though they lost in their conference tournament. But I think they have the most complete team to probably get out of that region. But they're definitely going to be tested if they, you know, bump into LSU, Utah, you know, some of the other kind of high-profile teams there. Then on the other side, in the Seattle region, it's broken up into Seattle 3 and Seattle 4. When I look at Seattle 3, that features number 1 overall seed Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech, nobody originally predicted them being a 1 seed in the tournament, but they are arguably, not including South Carolina, the hottest team, you know, going into the tournament.
They're on a roll.
They're on an 11-game winning streak. They won the ACC tournament. And basically that's kind of what lifted them into a number 1 seed, and deservingly so. So Virginia Tech is going to be good. The only thing is they are going to run into that, you know, that dynasty that was, I guess, in UConn. UConn is the 2 seed in that region. UConn had a lot of adversity throughout the season because they've just been crippled by injuries. But the truth is they're still UConn. They did get their star player back in AZ Fudd, who had a knee injury in the season that, you know, kept her out for several games. So she's going to be back for the tournament, and UConn's going to be right there. I wouldn't be surprised if UConn made it out just because of the pedigree and the same stuff that we talked about with South Carolina. Been there before. When they're healthy, they're probably deserving of a number 1 seed. So you can make an argument that now that they have their pieces, even though Paige Buchers is not with the team, she tore ACL, so she's out for the entire season. They still have a really good player in AZ. So I see them being in the mix and probably getting out of that region. And then lastly, on the second part of Seattle, which is the Seattle 4 region, that features number 1 Stanford. This is the region that I'm kind of up in the air about. Stanford, as of late, has not been good.
Yeah,
They have
I was gonna say
struggled.
that.
They struggled in a lot of their closing Pac-12 games. They ended up losing to Utah, who is a top 10 ranked team. So it's not like that's a bad loss, but they've had a lot of struggles as of late. They haven't really looked great. I'm honestly surprised that they were able to squeeze out a 1 seed, because I just don't feel like they're playing like a 1 seed at
Sure.
this juncture of the season. But they did. So they're number one. Number two is Iowa, which is not my sleeper team because they're a number 2 seed, but this is a dangerous team.
Yeah.
Iowa has not arguably, but probably the most dynamic player in women's college basketball, in Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
She's exceptional. She is WNBA ready. She is, just all that you can handle, and she can win a lot of games on her own. So,
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is, if you catch her on a day where she's just doing a 30-point triple double and she's not having it, like, they could beat everybody, including
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
So I think that her team is not as complete as some of these other
Sure.
teams, but there isn't another team that has a her.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of the matter. National Player of the Year, Aaliyah Boston, as amazing and incredible as she is, we've talked so much in the past about the wow factor.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark is the wow factor.
Yeah.
Aaliyah Boston is the best player in NCAA women's basketball. She's the most consistent by far, but she's on a great team with other great players that are going to go to the league. And, I don't want to downplay her because she's incredible. But when I just have to pick a player that you can say, give me her and I'm going to win a game, Iowa has that. So I would not be shocked if Iowa gets out of that Seattle 4. It would be awesome to see them face UConn in the Final Four. And that's my prediction. UConn versus Iowa in the Seattle region. And it's going to be South Carolina and I'm going to say Utah. Utah is probably my surprise pick, but Utah is very good. They're a very good team. Like I said, they, are a strong shooting team, which is the Achilles heel of South Carolina. They're more, athleticism, size, and how they beat people. But I'm going to say number 1 South Carolina versus number 2 Utah, and give me number 2 UConn versus number 2 Iowa. And those are my Final Four picks, with ultimately South Carolina and UConn meeting in the championship, and South Carolina repeating as back-to-back NCAA champs.
Wow. Great. I was just going to ask you about Caitlin Clark, because I didn't know where Iowa is, but she's obviously in the Seattle South or Seattle 2 region.
Seattle 4. Yeah.
Seattle 4. So I said South.
Yeah, they're doing numbers. They switched it up this year in the format, but yeah, Seattle 4.
Okay. So besides her, because I was going to say where she's at, I was going to ask you that, but you mentioned it as because you think Stanford is a little shaky. I saw Stanford game against UCLA a few weeks back, and during the season, I didn't see a Final Four team, so that's why I'm with you there. As far as Stanford obviously has a name and a pedigree, but maybe they don't get there.
Yeah.
So is there?
Stanford has 2 WNBA players on their roster. I mean, Cameron Brink is going to go. She's their post player. Haley Jones, exceptional wing. So they have people, they have pieces. I'm just talking about the chemistry and the momentum going into the tournament. I mean, Stanford lost their last regular season game. They lost in the Pac-12 tournament in the semis to UCLA. They're just not great right now. So
they're not hot. They're not on a roll. Yeah, like you said, there's some teams that are on a roll. So I was going to ask you, besides Caitlin Clark, is there a player out there you want the country to see? Or and maybe she doesn't get to the Final Four, but is there a player that the country should know about?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great players, and surprisingly, as dynamic as Caitlin Clark has been this season, she actually does not lead the NCAA in scoring.
Wow.
That's actually a girl who plays for Villanova. Villanova has a stacked, now I don't want to say stacked team, but Villanova has a roster that is very balanced. Wow. And I think besides having a dynamic scorer that can obviously score 28 points a game, just having other key pieces that are very consistent is kind of what you need in the NCAA tournament. And in my opinion, like, you need people that, are going to do what they've always done throughout the regular season. And that's kind of what kind of gets you over the hump when you're playing these close games and these tough games. I'm trying to find this girl's name. It really just eluded me and I had it written down, but I have to say her name because she's really that good. So excuse me, but let me go back to my notes that I had written.
Sure. Yeah. There's always someone like guy like that on the guy side who emerges or has a good game or two and people want to follow. So I was just interested on the girl side. You say she's from Villanova, so I'll definitely be looking for her, and hopefully her team wins a game or two and she gets a little more acclaim.
No, absolutely. Let me see. It's just Maddie Siegrist.
Maddie Siegrist.
She's a forward. She's 6'2". She leads the NCAA in a very efficient way in scoring.
Wow.
So please check her out when you get a chance. Villanova is in, let me go back to the bracket. I believe they're in Greenville 2 in their first round matchup.
Greenville and Seattle 1 and 2.
Let's see.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, I was right. Greenville 2, Villanova is the 4 seed. And because when you have the NCAA as a leading scorer, I mean, you have to obviously have a chance. You have somebody that's going to fill it up. But like I told you, I like the balance of the team. Besides, 28 points a game, it's 10, 12, 8, the consistency that you need to just perform. So that could potentially be a sleeper. I don't think they have enough in totality to, beat some of these other teams. And I think when you have certain teams like LSU who just play very aggressive, they're going to come out, they're going to hit first. They have a star in their own right in Angel Reese. Those are the teams that I always have to give an edge because I think you need a toughness factor. When some of these games come down to the wire, but it would not surprise me, put it that way, if they went deep into Greenville too, and made some noise, basically.
Yeah, I'll be watching that and I would check her out, and honestly, hopefully check out Caitlin Clark and see if South Carolina can hold serve, like do what they're supposed to do. I think that's going to be the story.
You have to watch Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is must see TV. Like she's really is good as advertised. I'm not really a person that likes to, boost up these college players because I just feel like not that they don't deserve it, but I just feel like sometimes when we talk about them going into the league and stuff like that, the things that they're able to do in college doesn't always translate.
Sure.
But when I look at Caitlin, I don't look at how much she scores. I look at how she scores. Yeah. And she's just the shot making ability. She's extremely skilled. She can pass the ball. She can rebound the ball. She can pretty much do everything. And she's actually more athletic than, people think. Like, I don't want to bring race into it, but just, as a white girl, she has a nice athleticism to her. So, that to me is usually the biggest obstacle when the pace of the WNBA changes and you're surrounded by athletes at every position. But she is going to hold her own. She's fast and she's very skilled, and skill over athleticism any day in my book because I feel like it just lasts longer. So she's going to be great.
I just want to see her hit, honestly, a no-look three-pointer, down the stretch and to win a tournament game. I just when they show the highlights.
She does that all the time. So
she, 35-footer, 41-footer. It's and her teammates just go nuts on the bench. It's just awesome.
She is pulling up from the logo. You have to pick her up at half court.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying that wow factor. You're not going to get that from Aaliyah Boston. You're just going to get a wow. She's super consistent and nobody can guard her, and she's going to have a double-double every single game. But Caitlin Clark is, okay, I'm coming over half court. Let me hit you real quick with this crossover, and I'm pulling up from 3, and it's cash. So what can you say?
Amazing. It's pretty amazing. Speaking of the tournament, obviously the girls is South Carolina kind of Gamecocks or bust a little bit. On the boys' side, we're not even going to spend much time on it because it's just wide open. Are you just going to enjoy it, Chelsea, a bit? I'm just going to enjoy watch some players that I like maybe or that I find out about and watch it.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. On the men's side, I always follow, teams that I kind of have a relationship with, maybe with, obviously some of the coaches or just teams that I've seen in the past because maybe they train with my trainer back home or you kind of follow people that you have a little bit of a connection to. So obviously I'm rooting for San Diego State. We just won the Mountain West Conference tournament. we're going to be in the tournament like we always are. And we're always one of those mid-major sleeper teams that can make a deep run and do well. And we haven't been to the Sweet 16 in some years, but I'm looking forward to seeing them, get over the hump. Matt Bradley kind of leading the way. So definitely going to be following them. I've seen some of the premier teams in the country because I've just, you catch them on TV. I've seen Kansas, I've seen Alabama, I've seen Houston. And if I had to give you a pick right now, and maybe it's not the one that everybody, is kind of predicting to win the championship, but I can really see Houston doing well. I think they're gritty. I think they're tough. I think they kind of check all the boxes in terms of what you need to have a championship caliber team and a great coach, dynamic guards and Sasser and Walker. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them win. But honestly, I don't really catch a lot of the men's tournament until it goes deeper into the, Elite Eight, Final Four. And I'm just going to kind of enjoy it and hope that San Diego State makes it that far.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's wide open. Again, we're not going to go too deep because, Ani's kind of was going to give us his spill and breakdown, but not just that. It's wide open this year. I look at regions and I see that, like Purdue is in the East, number 1. Duke is a 5. Marquette's a 2. It's kind of like one of your Seattle regions. It's open. I'm looking at South region, Alabama. They get the number 1, deservingly so. Arizona, that's a strong region. My UC Santa Barbara Gauchos are in there. They're playing Baylor in the 3-14. They're the 14. I'll have some interest in that because I went there. And they get in the tournament here and there. Shout out to my guy Joe Pasternak; he's doing a great job. And then over in the Midwest is your pick. Houston's the top seed, and we got Texas as a number 2. Obviously, they got Rodney Terry, interim coach there. He's doing a good job. And that's a strong bracket. Then you got the Kansas as another number 1 again. Obviously, Bill Self has done a good job. UCLA is in that bracket in the West. And believe it or not, Chelsea, for the first time ever, a regional is coming to Vegas. So the second weekend, Vegas will host the Elite 8 and the Sweet 16. So T-Mobile, that will be on which would have to be March 23rd and March 25th. There's a big fight in town that weekend on the 25th. David Benavidez is fighting. So it's going to be a festive event and see how it is. And then eventually the Final Four is going to be in Vegas down the line. But we'll see that they're going to have one regional there in Vegas. I guess the story of the men's tournament, again, we talk about off the court issues, and 2 things that come up real fast are Brandon Miller and his play, how good he is. And then obviously this is off court issue we've talked about and broken it down many times, but it's like, can Alabama do it? Or I know without saying it, and again, I'll just go on and say it without people saying it on here. A lot of people are rooting for Alabama to lose. You know what I mean? But also there's a small faction who are like, wow, can Alabama do it? But I know a lot of people are rooting for Alabama to lose.
Yeah, and I think Alabama will be fueled by that.
Yeah.
And, regardless of if you want them to lose or not, Brandon Miller is as good as advertised. We've seen him, play through all these chants and all the adversity and stuff as of late and be exceptional. So, I people, when that whole situation happened, you saw how people wanted to see Alabama punished and this kid specifically because he's just so talented. But I wouldn't mind seeing Alabama go all the way. And they're another team that's going to be right there and certainly have a chance. So I can see them proving a lot of the haters wrong and kind of just using, that as motivation to get the job done.
Wow. Yeah. That's going to be interesting. I don't know if they can get through. I think they're going to get tripped up somewhere.
Where do you see it? Where do you see it happening?
I think maybe to Arizona or
UCLA had Arizona the other day, though.
Yeah. And in Arizona, maybe they're too strong, like you said. But I would say that would be the Elite 8 game that maybe Arizona might do it. Obviously, Tommy Lloyd has had some good teams, but you're going to see if Arizona can get over the hump. UCLA just has those injuries, to Mari Bailey and to Adam Bona. Russ, I think they'd be right there. They have a really good team. They don't have a great star. They don't have a guy of Brandon Miller's ability for the next level, but they got a really good team. They just don't. I saw the Pac-12 tournament. I went to the Pac-12 tournament at T-Mobile a little bit last week. boy, they're really thin, Chelsea. I mean, one little ankle turn or one
It's over.
bad stretch, and they have no bench. They literally no bench. And again, with Bona being a little injured. So, real quick, I'm just going over that bracket. I would think it would be Kansas or the 3 seed is Gonzaga. I can see most likely Kansas coming out of there with the UCLA games trouble. I do like your Houston pick to go out there, but it's really is wide open. Is there any one player that maybe you haven't got on TV a lot that maybe is a draft choice, or it's Matt Bradley? It could be anybody that you like kind of want to watch just from any of the teams that you're like, he's a good player. I just want to watch him a little more, and hopefully he goes deep.
Oh, well, the one kid that, I kind of already mentioned before that I just took a liking to his game, seeing him from earlier in the season is the Sasser, the guard from Houston.
Houston, yeah.
Like, he can really fill it up. He's dynamic. I feel like he plays hard on both ends. I really just enjoy watching him. I don't really have too many NCAA favorites. I do follow, obviously, San Diego State, and Matt Bradley is like our guy this year. And, I want them to do well. So I spoke about Alabama coming out of the other region on the other side. They would actually meet San Diego State in the Sweet 16 and have to beat my guys to get there. But, I like my Houston pick. I like their guards. I don't really have anybody else off the top of my head that really is just, that I have to watch. I'm just going to catch.
Yeah. Makes sense.
What about you? Do you have anybody off the top of your head?
Yeah, I want to see like from this whole tournament, I do want to see how SoCal does as a team. I like to see TCU. They're kind of in that mix. I want to see if Charles O'Bannon, the Vegas kid, can help that team go. They kind of made a run little bit last year in the same region as Arizona and Houston. Looking around, I like to see, man, it's really tough. St. Mary's, Aiden Mahaney got in there as a 5th seed in the West. If they can get by that, 5-12 VCU, that would be a good thing. If they can maybe meet a Kansas down the line, I would like to see Aiden Mahaney, who, St. Mary's is really good program. They're doing a really hell of a job. Randy Bennett there, my guy Randy Bennett's doing a good job. And Aiden Mahaney, I knew he was good in high school. So I would say Aiden Mahaney. Just looking at that, now I'm looking at the bracket a little bit more. I like him, a freshman from Campo Lindo at St. Mary's Moraga. A lot of people don't know where it's at. It's in the Bay Area, but that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I'm like you. I'm going to watch it all as much as I can. I'll really watch these first 2 rounds, get into it. Maybe even place a few bets or two and see if I can hit a parlay, and then I'll have a good sense of what's going on. So that's kind of where it's at.
And I think on the men's side too, it's far more unpredictable than the women's side. Like on the women's side, you might have, a random 1 or 2, upsets, but for the most part, it's been this way for the last couple of years. The 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, they generally advance. And it comes down to, I don't really, I need to look the stats up on the women's tournament, but I couldn't tell you the last time a 5 seed or 8 seed, actually won the tournament.
Yeah.
But I feel like, even though I have Houston as my pick and they're a 1 seed, I just feel like it's more possible with on the men's side. And we've just seen that in the past. And I remember teams that have had crazy runs. From mid-majors, or when Butler had that run to the national title, championship game, like it's a lot more unpredictable on the men's end. So it would not shock me to see, some upsets early on that side, I guess.
No doubt. And we said UConn won it. They just got hot with Shabazz Napier and the other guard. They just won it. They won 6 in a row. I see that a little bit on the men's side. The portal, the balance. Mid-majors are really good players. There's so many good men's players. I think on the women's side, it's getting there, but you're right. The elite talent and the better teams are going to make it through. That's just where it is. And that's where college basketball and women is. It's compared to, if you're comparing the women and the men, is kind of like the men's was in the 70s and the old days where the strongest teams advance. And that's still going. And one day the women's is going to be more balanced. I know it is, because they're going to continue to get better, continue to be more balanced, and the tournament's going to be even more popular. That's just the way it works. It's just evolution. There's always going to be a UConn or a South Carolina or whatever school's hot, like whether it's UConn or Tennessee, but as a whole, the thing's going to get better. So we're going to watch it. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to get going here. We got to, like I said, we're just short and sweet. This time we're at about an hour. So we appreciate everybody tuning in to episode 157. In the future, we're going to have our W preview. We're going to preview, obviously, we're going to have the NBA draft down the line. We're going to talk a little bit about the Ballislife All-American game. Very busy time, so we may not be on every week. We're definitely going to talk to Chelsea more about her, end of the road of a decade in Israel and overseas, and give some perspective on that. But I think for now, that's about it, Chelsea, unless you have anything else.
All good, Ronnie.
Yeah. Appreciate everybody tuning in again, and we'll be with you guys soon. For Ani, who's not with us, for Chelsea, Hopkins, and Ronnie Flores, we're out of here, guys.